The plasma chains burned against Kithara's wrists as she stood in the center of the slave auction block. The metal platform beneath her feet was stained with the blood of countless others who had stood here before her. Around the circular arena, buyers from a dozen different species shouted bids and insults in equal measure. "Look at those cursed silver eyes!" screamed a Volthan trader, his forearms waving in disgust. "No Zelanti warrior should ever be born with the death mark." Kithara kept her head high despite the chains. Her silver eyes, the genetic trait that had marked her as doomed from birth, swept across the crowd with cold dignity. Among her people, the Zelanti silver eyes were believed to bring death to any warrior unit that accepted the Cursed One. For 23 years, she had lived as an outcast, forbidden from joining the warrior clans that define Zelanti society. "The bidding starts at 50 credits, the auctioneer announced, a blob-like hut who dripped slime with each word. "Fresh from the prison planet Korvax. This one killed 6 guards during her capture." A Kragan smuggler raised a tentacle. 50 credits for mine work. Those muscles will last 2 years in the thorium caves. Kithara's jaw tightened. She had spent 5 years in the Korvax prison for the crime of defending herself against 3 Zelanti males who thought her cursed status made her fair game for abuse. When she fought back and won, the authorities branded her a dangerous criminal. The prison break had been her only chance at freedom, but it led her straight into the hands of slave traders. 75 credits, called out a Spadaxi pirate captain. "She make good arena fodder on Terminus Station." The silver-eyed Zelanti closed her eyes briefly, remembering her grandmother's words from long ago. "The curse is not in your eyes, child. The curse is in their fear of what you represent." Her grandmother had been executed for speaking such heresy, but her words had kept Kithara alive through years of exile and imprisonment. 100 credits. The voice came from the back of the arena, clear and strong. The crowd turned to see a figure stepping forward from the shadows. He was human, wearing the dark blue uniform of an independent ship captain. His brown hair was streaked with premature gray, and his green eyes held an intensity that made even the hardened slave traders step back. The human was tall for his species, with the lean build of someone who had spent years in low gravity. A plasma pistol hung at his hip, and various scars on his hands and forearms told stories of countless battles. But it was his eyes that drew Kithara's attention. They held no fear, no disgust, no pity. They studied her with the calculating gaze of someone evaluating a potential asset. 100 for a cursed Zelanti? Laughed the Krager. Humans truly have no sense. The human captain stepped closer to the platform. 150 credits, final offer. The auctioneer's eyes widened at the unexpected bidding war. "Do I hear 160? Silence fell over the arena. The Krager shook his tentacles in disgust and turned away. The Spadaxi captain chittered something about humans and their strange superstitions before departing. Within moments, only the human remained as a serious bidder. "Sold to the human for 150 credits, the auctioneer declared, his slime glistening with greed. Kithara found herself studying her new owner as the transaction was completed. Most humans she had encountered in the galaxy were either traders seeking easy profit or tourists gawking at exotic aliens. This one was different. He carried himself like a warrior, and the way other captains in the arena gave him respectful distance suggested he had earned his reputation the hard way. The plasma chains fell away as the transaction completed. Kithara rubbed her wrists, feeling the burn marks where the energy restraints had held her. The human captain approached, extending his hand in what she recognized as a human greeting gesture. "Captain Marcus Chun, commanding the frigate Defiance," he said simply. "You can call me Captain or Marcus, your choice." Kithara stared at the offered hand for a moment before clasping it. His grip was firm but not dominating, the handshake of an equal rather than a master to slave. "I am Kithara Veltar, formerly of the Moonblade clan." The clan name tasted bitter in her mouth. They had cast her out at age 16 when her silver eyes made it impossible to hide her cursed status any longer. "Formerly?" Marcus asked as he led her away from the auction platform. "The curse," Kithara said flatly. Silver Eyes mark a Zelanti warrior as doomed. Any unit that accepts one will face death and defeat, so the legends say. Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her directly. What do you say? The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked for her opinion about her own curse before. I say legends are often wrong, she replied carefully. But I have never had the chance to prove it. Interesting. Marcus resumed walking, leading her through the crowded spaceport toward the docking bays. Tell me about those 6 guards you killed? Kithara felt her muscles tense automatically. This was always where things went wrong, where potential allies learned too much about what she was capable of. They tried to prevent my escape. I prevented their prevention. With what weapons? My hands, a metal food tray, part of a broken bed frame. She watched his face for signs of fear or revulsion. Instead, she saw something that looked almost like approval. 6 armed guards with improvised weapons in your bare hands, Marcus mused. While wearing restraints, I assume? Yes, Kithara stopped walking. Are you testing me, human? Always, Marcus replied with a slight smile. It's how I've stayed alive this long. My ship faces dangerous work and I need crew who can handle themselves when things go sideways. Which they do frequently. They reached the docking bay where the Defiance waited. Kithara studied the ship with a warrior's eye for tactical assessment. It was a modified Corellian frigate, built for speed and maneuverability rather than heavy assault. Weapon ports had been upgraded and additional shield generators were visible along the hull. This was a ship designed for running fast and hitting hard, perfect for the kind of independent operations that kept human captains busy in the Outer Rim. What kind of work? Kithara asked. Cargo runs through contested space. Escort missions for ships that can't protect themselves. Occasional bounty hunting when the credits are right. Marcus paused at the boarding ramp. Sometimes we take contracts that the big shipping companies won't touch because they're too dangerous or too morally complicated. And you think I would be useful for this work? Marcus looked directly into her silver eyes without flinching. I think you've been underestimated your entire life because of something you had no control over. I think you've survived situations that would have broken most people, and you've done it alone. My experience tells me that someone with your background and training would be extremely useful, yes. Kithara felt something strange in her chest, a sensation she hadn't experienced since childhood, hope. It was dangerous to hope, but this human seemed different from everyone else she had encountered. What would my status be on your ship? Crew member. Same as everyone else, Marcus started up the boarding ramp. You'll earn shares of whatever we make, you'll have your own quarters, and you'll have a voice in major decisions that affect the ship. The only thing I ask is loyalty and competence. And if the curse proves real? Kithara asked, following him up the ramp. If my presence brings death to your ship? Marcus stopped at the top of the ramp and turned back to her. His expression was serious but not unkind. Then I'll have been wrong about you. But I've been making character judgments for 15 years, and I'm usually right. The way you carry yourself, the way you handled those guards, the way you've survived everything that's been thrown at you, none of that says cursed to me. It says warrior. The boarding ramp closed behind them with a soft hiss. Kithara found herself inside a human ship for the first time, surrounded by the unfamiliar but not unpleasant sense of recycled air and metal. The corridors were clean and well-maintained, with the kind of attention to detail that spoke of a crew that took pride in their vessel. My quarters are this way, Marcus said, leading her deeper into the ship. I'll introduce you to the rest of the crew once we're underway. Fair warning, humans can be skeptical of new additions, but they're good people. Prove yourself to them. The same way you proved yourself in that prison, and you'll do fine. As they walked, Kithara allowed herself to think about the possibility that her life might actually be changing for the better. For the first time in years, she was not alone. She had a chance to be part of something larger than herself, to prove that the curse was nothing more than superstition and fear. She had no way of knowing that within days, both her courage and her captain's judgment would be tested in ways neither of them could imagine. But for now, walking through the corridors of the Defiance beside a human who saw her as a warrior, rather than a curse, Cathara Veltar felt something she had almost forgotten was possible. She felt like she belonged. The crew meeting took place in the Defiance's main common room 3 hours after departure from the slave market. Cathara sat at the far end of the rectangular table, acutely aware of the suspicious glances being thrown her way. The 5 human crew members had the weathered look of spacers who had seen too much of the galaxy's dark side, and their body language made it clear they weren't happy about her presence. "So let me get this straight. Cap," said Jake Morrison, the ship's engineer. His graying beard and oil-stained coveralls marked him as a veteran of countless repair jobs under hostile conditions. "You bought a Zelante warrior with the curse eyes, and you want us to trust our lives to her?" Marcus leaned back in his chair at the head of the table. "I want you to give her the same chance you give any new crew member. Let her prove herself through actions, not prejudice." "It's not prejudice when it's documented fact," interjected Sarah Kim, the navigator. Her cybernetic left eye whirred as it focused on Cathara. "I've run shipping routes through Zelante space for 8 years. Every crew that's taken on a silver-eyed one has ended up dead or worse. The Zelante don't exile them for no reason." Cathara kept her expression neutral, though each word felt like a blade sliding between her ribs. She had heard these same arguments countless times before, from her own people and others throughout the galaxy. The superstition ran deep, crossing species and cultural boundaries. "The Zelante also believe that eating the heart of your enemy grants you his strength," Marcus replied calmly. "Just because a belief is widespread doesn't make it true." Tom Bradley, the weapons specialist, drummed his fingers on the table. "All I'm saying is that we've got a good thing going here. Why risk it on some alien mysticism? Curse it or not, she's another mouth to feed and another share to split." "Because," Marcus said, his voice taking on a harder edge, "she killed 6 armed guards with improvised weapons while wearing restraints. Because she survived 5 years on Korvax, which has a life expectancy of 18 months. Because every instinct I've developed over 15 years in space tells me she's exactly what we need." Elena Vasquez, the medic, spoke up for the first time. "What's your take on this, Cathara? You've been pretty quiet." All eyes turned to the silver-eyed warrior. Cathara met each gaze in turn before speaking. "Your captain paid good money for my services? I understand your concern about adding an unknown element to a functioning team. In your position, I would feel the same skepticism." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I can tell you that I have never brought harm to any group that accepted me honestly. I can tell you that my combat skills and tactical knowledge are considerable. But words mean nothing. Judge me by what I do, not by what others say I am." "Fair enough," Elena said. "But what happens if the curse turns out to be real? What if people start dying?" Kithara's silver eyes hardened slightly. "Then you will know where to find me. I will not run from responsibility for my actions or my presence." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent chiming from the bridge. Marcus touched his cum unit. "Chun here." "Captain, we've got a problem," came the voice of Rico Santos, their pilot. "Long-range sensors are picking up a distress signal. Civilian transport under attack by raiders about 6 hours out." Marcus was already standing. "How many hostiles?" 3 ships. Look like modified fighters, probably pirates. The transport is the Silver Dawn, registered out of New Geneva. Passenger manifest shows 43 civilians, including families with children. The crew exchanged glances. Taking on 3 pirate ships was risky business, especially when they were still learning to work with a new team member. But leaving civilians to die wasn't something any of them could stomach. "What's the nearest patrol response time?" Marcus asked. "Closest naval unit is 14 hours out. The transport won't last half that long." Marcus looked around the table. "Crew vote. All in favor of responding to the distress call?" 5 hands went up immediately. Cathara raised hers as well, though she noticed a slight hesitation from some of the others. "Motion carries. Sarah, plot an intercept course. Tom, start prepping the weapon systems. Jake, I need every bit of speed the engines can give us." As the crew dispersed to their stations, Marcus caught Kithara's arm. "You don't have to prove anything on this run. Staying quarters if you prefer? With respect, Captain, that would prove everything the others fear about me. I did not accept your offer so I could hide when danger comes. Marcus studied her face for a moment, then nodded. Fair point. Tom, make sure she's familiar with our small arms inventory. And Kithara? Don't make me regret this. The next 5 hours passed in tense preparation. Kithara spent time with each crew member, learning their individual skills and how they work together as a unit. Despite their initial suspicion, she found herself impressed by their competence and dedication. Jake showed her the engineering section, explaining the ship's capabilities and limitations with the pride of someone who truly loved his work. Sarah demonstrated the navigation and sensor systems, though she remained coolly professional throughout. Tom walked her through their weapons locker, testing her familiarity with various firearms and energy weapons. You know your way around hardware, he admitted grudgingly as she field-stripped a plasma rifle with expert efficiency. Where'd you learn to handle human weapons? Necessity, Kithara replied simply. When you are cast out, you learn to use whatever tools are available for survival. Elena was the most welcoming. Perhaps because her medical training gave her a different perspective on prejudice and superstition. I've seen enough battlefield injuries to know that skill matters more than species or eye color, she said as she showed Kithara the medical bay. If you're half as good as Marcus thinks you are, we'll be lucky to have you. The moment of truth came when they dropped out of hyperspace near the Silver Dawn. The civilian transport was a converted cargo hauler with minimal shields and no weapons. 3 sleek Raider fighters circled it like predators, their weapons fire slowly wearing down its defenses. Transport Silver Dawn, this is Captain Chen of the Defiance. We're here to assist. The response crackled with static and desperation. Defiance, thank God. They've disabled our engines and our shields are down to 12%. We've got 43 people aboard, including 8 children. Marcus turned to his crew. Sarah, take us in fast and low. Tom, target their lead fighter. Jake, reroute power from life support to shields. Rico, I need evasive maneuvers as soon as we engage. What about me? Kithara asked. You're with Elena in the medical bay? If this goes badly, we'll have casualties. Kithara felt a flash of frustration. Even now, at the moment of crisis, they were keeping her away from the real action. But she simply nodded and followed Elena toward the medical bay. The first shots came as they closed to weapons range. The Defiance shuddered under enemy fire, but the modified shields held. Tom's return fire caught the lead raider squarely, and the pirate ship exploded in a shower of debris. Nice shooting, Rico called out as he threw the ship into a spiraling dive to avoid return fire from the remaining 2 pirates, but the celebration was premature. Alarms began wailing throughout the ship as enemy fire found weak spots in their defenses. Shield generators are down, Jake reported from engineering. We're taking hull damage. The ship lurched violently to one side as a particularly devastating hit struck home. In the medical bay, Kithara heard Elena cry out in pain as she was thrown against a bulkhead. The human medic slumped to the floor, blood flowing from a gash on her forehead. Elena! Kithara rushed to her side, but the medic was unconscious. Emergency lights flickered as power fluctuated throughout the ship. On the bridge, Marcus's voice came through the comm system, tight with strain. Tom, I need those raiders off our back. Sarah, can you get us some maneuvering room? Trying, Captain. But they're good pilots and they know we're protecting the transport. Kithara looked at Elena's unconscious form, then at the medical equipment around her. She had basic field medical training, but nothing like what would be needed if this battle went badly. The ship needed Elena conscious and functioning. Making a decision that would change everything. Kithara activated the comm system. Bridge, this is Kithara. Elena is unconscious with a head injury. I'm coming up to assist. Negative. Marcus's voice was sharp. Stay where you are. Captain, Kithara said formally, I am trained in shipboard combat tactics and small unit operations. Your crew is skilled, but they're thinking like merchants, not warriors. You need someone who understands how pirates fight? Another massive impact shook the ship. Through the bridge she could hear Tom cursing as weapon systems sparked and failed. "Port weapons array is down," he reported. "We're sitting ducks out here." Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. "Kithara, get up here. But if you get any of my people killed, curse or no curse, I'll space you myself." Kithara ran through the corridors as the ship bucked and rolled under enemy fire. When she reached the bridge, the scene was one of controlled chaos. Rico fought to keep them alive with evasive maneuvers while Sarah calculated firing solutions, and Tom tried to repair damaged systems with one hand while firing with the other. "Report?" Kithara said calmly as she took in the tactical situation. "2 pirates left," Marcus said grimly. "They're using the transport as cover, making hit-and-run attacks." 3 weeks later, Kithara had settled into the rhythm of life aboard the Defiance. The initial suspicion from the crew had gradually transformed into professional respect, and she found herself looking forward to each new day among these humans who had given her something she'd never had. Before, a place to belong, that sense of security was shattered when they received an emergency transmission from Admiral Harrison of the Colonial Defense Force. Captain Chun, the Admiral's gravelly voice filled the bridge. "I need the Defiance for a priority mission. How quickly can you reach the Kepler 442 system?" Marcus exchanged glances with his crew. Admiral Harrison only called in favors when the situation was desperate. 18 hours at maximum burn. "What's the situation, Admiral?" "The research station on Kepler 442b has gone dark. Last transmission indicated they were under attack by unknown hostiles. The station houses 300 scientists and their families, including some of the Federation's top xenobiologists. They were studying the planet's unique ecosystem when contact was lost." Sarah pulled up the system charts on her console. "That's deep in unexplored space. No regular patrol routes, no backup within days of travel." "Which is exactly why they need you," Admiral Harrison continued. "Your ship is fast enough to get there quickly, and your crew is experienced enough to handle whatever's waiting. I'm transmitting all available data now." As the files downloaded, Tom studied the tactical information with growing concern. "Captain, look at these sensor readings from the station's last transmission. Whatever hit them came fast and hit hard. Defensive systems were neutralized within minutes." Kithara leaned over the sensor data, her silver eyes tracking the attack patterns. Something about the strike formation looked familiar, triggering memories from her training among the warrior clans. "May I see the full sensor logs?" Marcus nodded, and Sarah transferred the data to Kithara's station. The Zelanti warrior studied the readings intently, her expression growing increasingly grim. "This is not a random pirate raid," she said finally. "The attack pattern, the targeting priorities, the speed of execution, this is Valdris hegemony methodology." The bridge fell silent. The Valdris were one of the most feared military powers in the galaxy, a species that viewed conquest and subjugation as religious imperatives. They had been expanding aggressively for decades, absorbing entire star systems into their empire. "The Valdris are 3 sectors away from Federation space," Rico said. "What would they want with a research station?" Kithara's jaw tightened. The station was studying xenobiology. If the researchers discovered something valuable, a new technology, a biological weapon, advanced genetic material, the Valdris would kill everyone there to claim it for themselves. Marcus made his decision quickly. "Admiral, we're en route. 18 hours to arrival." "Understood, Captain." "And Chen, be careful. We can't afford to lose you and your crew." As they jumped to hyperspace, Marcus called the crew together for a mission briefing. The mood in the common room was tense as they reviewed what little intelligence they had. 300 civilians, Elena said quietly, "including children. If they're still alive." "They are," Kithara said with certainty. "The Valdris do not waste resources. If they attack the station for its research, they need the scientists alive to extract the information. But they will not remain patient for long." Jake looked up from his technical analysis. The station's defensive systems were top of the line. How did the Valdris punch through so quickly? Because they know weakness when they see it, Kithara replied. Human defensive thinking focuses on protecting everything equally. The Valdris identify the single most critical failure point and strike there with overwhelming force. Once that point falls, everything else collapses. Tom frowned. So how do we get past their defenses if they're that good at breaking ours? We do what humans do best, Kithara said, looking directly at Marcus. We refuse to accept that something is impossible. Your captain saw potential where others saw only curse. Your species excels at finding solutions that others never consider. 18 hours later, they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. The research station orbited the planet like a metal flower, its modular design spread across multiple interconnected platforms. But the beautiful structure was scarred with weapon damage, and 3 massive Valdris warships hung in space nearby like predatory sharks. Holy hell, Rico whispered. Those are Domination-class battle cruisers. Each one could take on half the Federation fleet. Marcus studied the tactical display grimly. Sarah, any sign of life from the station? Minimal power readings from the residential sections. The Valdris must be keeping life support running for the prisoners. How many boarding troops would they have deployed? Marcus asked Kithara. Standard hegemony doctrine calls for 50 warriors per objective. 3 ships means approximately 150 elite Valdris troops on that station, plus ship crews of about 200 each. Tom shook his head. 6-to-1 odds, plus they have massive firepower advantage. This is suicide. Not if we think like humans instead of like conventional military, Kithara said thoughtfully. The Valdris expect either frontal assault or retreat. They do not expect creativity. What are you thinking? Marcus asked. Kithara pulled up the station schematics. The research facility was studying the planet's ecosystem. That means they have specimen transport systems, atmospheric processors, and biological containment units. Infrastructure that the Valdris would not have bothered to study because it seems irrelevant to military objectives. Elena caught on first. You want to use the station's own systems against them? The Valdris are excellent warriors, but they are not good at adapting to unexpected situations. Their strength comes from overwhelming preparation and rigid doctrine. Disrupt that doctrine, and they become vulnerable. Marcus leaned forward. Explain. The station's atmospheric processing system can be used to introduce compounds into the air supply. Nothing lethal. The humans are excellent at creating non-lethal alternatives that would never occur to a species like the Valdris. We create confusion, disrupt their coordination, then strike at their command structure while they try to understand what is happening. Rico looked skeptical. That assumes we can get aboard without them detecting us. We can, Kithara said. But it requires using the one approach that no military mind would consider. We surrender. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Marcus spoke. You want us to deliberately get captured? Yes, the Valdris will want to interrogate the crew of any ship that arrives, especially one that came in response to a distress call. They will bring us aboard their command vessel, expecting us to be helpless prisoners. They will not expect us to be a strike team. Tom was already shaking his head. Even if we get aboard, we'd be outnumbered and outgunned. 6 of us against hundreds of them. Not 6, Kithara corrected. 1, she stood up, her silver eyes reflecting cold determination. You will surrender the ship and request to speak with the Valdris commander. When they bring you aboard for interrogation, I will already be in their ventilation systems. Zelanti warriors are trained in infiltration techniques that work against any ship design. While you provide distraction through questioning, I will reach their command center and disable their ability to coordinate. That's completely insane, Sarah said. You'd be alone against an entire battlecruiser crew. I have been alone my entire life, Kithara replied simply. It is what I was trained for. And while I am creating chaos in their command structure, you will be getting to the research station to secure the civilians. Marcus studied her face intently. This isn't about proving yourself anymore, is it? You actually think this can work? I know it can work. The Valdres have never faced an opponent who understands both their methods and their weaknesses. They have never faced a human crew led by a captain who sees possibilities instead of limitations. Elena spoke up quietly. What if you don't make it out? Kithara's smile was fierce and proud. Then I will have died as a warrior, fighting beside comrades who trusted me with their lives. It is more than I ever dared hope for. The plan went into motion 2 hours later. Marcus broadcast a surrender signal to the Valdres fleet, claiming that his ship was damaged and requesting safe passage for the crew. As expected, the Valdres commander demanded that they come aboard for interrogation. What the Valdres did not know was that Kithara had used her time to study their ship designs and identify access points that their security would overlook. While the crew prepared for a formal surrender, she slipped out through the Defiance's waste disposal system and used magnetic grapples to work her way along the hull of the nearest Valdres ship. Marcus and his crew were brought aboard the command vessel under heavy guard, just as planned. The Valdres commander, a massive reptilian being with scarred armor and cold yellow eyes, studied them with the contempt of a superior species examining inferior specimens. You are Captain Chun, the commander stated. Your ship responded to the distress call from this station. Why? Because innocent people needed help, Marcus replied honestly. It's what we do. The Valdres commander's laugh was like grinding metal. Weakness. Your species always prioritizes the welfare of strangers over strategic advantage. It is why you will never be true conquerors. Est.